Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. In today's episode we will be discussing all the differences between the Rent-A-Girlfriend anime and manga. What's nice is that more and more anime have been sticking closely to the source material, and Rent-A-Girlfriend is one of those that falls into that category. So let's get started. In the first episode, Kazuya gets a call that his grandmother faints after having his meltdown with Chizuru on their rental date at the aquarium. She is introduced as his girlfriend and they have to hide in a room while they get extra close to get away from Chizuru's grandma finding them. This leads to them lying and admitting that they are a real couple to both grandmas. The manga has this split into two different visits. The first is just when they see Kazuya's granny, and this leads to them having their meeting at school that was at the end of the episode. This forces Kazuya to ask Chizuru at school to go visit his grandma with him after she already discussed with him to pretend they don't know each other at school. Kazuya convinces her to go by threatening to reveal her rental girlfriend's secret at the college, and that's how they end up going together. This is when they do their meeting with Chizuru's grandma and they have their intimate hiding spot there in the hospital bed. If you're like me, you're absolutely shocked that none of the other characters in the show other than Kazuya were able to distinguish Chizuru in her rental girlfriend mode from her regular school persona, especially some of their close friends that they have. Needless to say, in the manga, the author did a better job distinguishing the two identities and separating them apart. She is given more like grandma style clothes that she wears at school, and the glasses that she wears are meant to make her eyes look smaller rather than the contacts she normally wears when she's in girlfriend mode. When Kazuya is trying to get in, the door's chain stops him from doing so, and Chizuru kicks him out and then they both fall back. The manga gives us a little extra with making the chain snap as Kazuya is trying to get in, and Kazuya falls on top of Chizuru and gives us one of those intimate moments. This causes them to argue and quickly leads to Chizuru kicking Kazuya out just like in the anime. Chizuru saves Kazuya during a surprise visit from his grandma. The anime has grandma leaving in a taxi, and we are left with our characters talking on the balcony and agreeing to Kazuya being able to rent Chizuru every Wednesday for an hour. The manga handles this a little bit differently, with Kazuya's father being the one to pick up grandma. The father sees them talking on the balcony and then Kazuya handing money to Chizuru. This is opted out of the anime and is later referenced a couple more times before the father ultimately confronts him about it. I won't spoil the conversation, but it isn't anything too major and important to the story. We got our beach episode real quick in the Rent-A-Girlfriend anime, and it didn't disappoint. Tension is built when Kazuya is asked if he should hang out after the beach at Chizuru's house that doesn't exist. He is torn on this choice and ultimately chooses to say that they have been thinking of breaking up. This conversation is not in the manga, and instead the tension is built when our characters lose at poker and have to play the Pocky game. To play the Pocky game, two people begin eating one Pocky from each end. The first person whose mouth comes off the Pocky or the other player gets to the middle first loses. Kazuya makes this statement about breaking up before the mouths touch, and that's how that interaction ends there at the beach. After saving Chizuru from drowning, it is implied that Kazuya had to stay at the hospital for a short time, and we're not exactly sure for how long. But this quick scene is left out of the anime. The manga includes him paying as he leaves the hospital and complaining about how expensive this trip has gotten. The anime has our protagonists run into each other on campus as Chizuru is with her friends. She quickly dismisses him and drags her friends away as Kazuya is left there flustered. The anime ends the scene with Kazuya beating himself up on the stairs for reacting that way upon seeing her. The manga takes it a step further with Chizuru pulling him aside later and calling him out for acting that way and acting submissive towards her. She tells him to tell his grandma their relationship is over because she will be telling her grandmother that weekend the same thing. She ends the convo with the line, "Also, I've always wanted to say this, that t-shirt looks weird." After the beach and hot spring episode, the rental couple decides to keep up their lie for a while longer. Kazuya's friends find out that they decided not to break up while in class and make a big ruckus around him. Mami notices from across the room, and while bothered, she simply just says, "Obnoxious." Again, the manga goes further in this situation. Mami hears this commotion about them staying together in class and gets up and leaves. Her friends even mention that it's like it hurts her to be at school. There are other instances in the manga where it seems Mami is a lot more bothered by Kazuya's relationship than she lets on in the anime. The anime depicts Ruka with black and almost bluish hair color and greenish blue eyes, but our first meeting with Ruka during the double date in the manga has a colored page with Ruka, and she is shown with brown hair and brown eyes. This may just be a coloring choice by the mangaka because characters reference Chizuru's hair as black, but it's always colored as brown. After the double date, Kazuya goes after Ruka. The groping encounter happens, and then he follows her outside onto the bridge where they have their conversation that leads to him saving her during the fall and ultimately agreeing to keeping their secret. The manga version of Kazuya is a lot more desperate and follows her even onto the train. She even threatens to yell "stalker" if he crosses an imaginary line she drew on the floor. He convinces her to go to a cafe with him, and there they have half the conversation, and later they have the rest of it on top of that bridge. I really love how they showed Ruka's backstory and explained her condition in the anime, and it was one of my favorite scenes of the whole show. While it was very well done, it did leave out a few details. The manga dedicated a whole chapter to Ruka and showed us her collapsing at school, her mother scolding her, and Ruka realizing she can't do certain things the other kids can. Her being treated differently by other people, like she was too weak, and she was interested even at a young age with having her heart rate get as high as it could. Her feeling more emotionally empty and comparing herself to a robot. One panel tells us her condition did improve with age and that she was taking some type of medication to help her. It even shows us how her rental dates went. One guy even just abandoned her when a group of thuggish dudes came up to them. It really made us feel even more empathetic towards Ruka than the anime did, if you can imagine that. Ruka bumps into Kazuya and Chizuru while they're on a date and steals him away. She takes him for some dessert and notices his mind is elsewhere. Then blindfolds him and drags him to a love hotel. We get the scene where Kazuya stands strong where most men would have broken, that eventually ends up leading to Ruka finding out when the meetup will be for the New Year's dinner. There's a few things to mention in this one. After Ruka drags Kazuya away, Chizuru checks her phone, and this is just to remind us that her grandma is one of her priorities and that her grandmother is still not doing too well. This affects the story much later, so it's not too important right now. In the love hotel, he catches a glimpse of the exit fee of 3,000 yen, and this was in the anime too, and the reason for Kazuya not leaving immediately was because of this little fee. So it kind of explains it a little bit better in the manga. At this point, Kazuya decides to just do it with Ruka, and that was one of his words explicitly, and this is before he realizes that she just wanted to talk at first. In this scene, the anime makes it seem like it's just very, very tempting for him. The rest of this scene plays out just like normal. Kazuya drags Ruka to the alley behind the restaurant, and they argue about the made-up story he gave to his family and about her wanting to be the real girlfriend. It ends with her touching his hand and getting too close to him, and him saying that it's time for them to leave for the shrine. Ruka checks her heart rate and she sees that it's 92 beats per minute, which is very high for her. The scene in the manga ends way differently. First of all, they are in the lobby-like area of the building. After Ruka gets too close and touches his hand, he sees Mami with some of her friends walking by. Kazuya covers Ruka's mouth, turns her around, and pulls her against his body. He does this while hiding behind a wall. The second that Mami turns away from where they are, he takes Ruka's hand and they run to the staircase. Ruka falls down about halfway, but they quickly get back up and then they go. Mami must have heard Ruka fall and she sees Kazuya going up the stairs with Ruka. It was only for a split second, so in the manga it makes it seem like she was just imagining it, or she thought so. After successfully escaping and getting outside, Kazuya tries to get Ruka to go back to the restaurant with him, and she says she's gonna stay there for just a second while he goes on ahead. This is when she checks her heart rate and she sees that it's 92 beats per minute, just like in the anime, but this is a much better explanation for why her heart rate was beating so fast, and it gives us the implication that Mami still has Kazuya on her mind. As an anime watcher, I got confused when Chizuru called it a flower garden in the manga, but an amusement park in the anime. The place they went, Asakusa Hanayashiki, is a real place that was originally opened as a flower garden but turned into an amusement park as referenced in the anime. Little fun fact, it is the oldest amusement park in Japan. Kazuya gets the note in his mailbox and starts overthinking immediately. He cleans his place and puts on an outfit he doesn't normally wear. He goes out a little early and then they start talking right away about renting Sumi. The manga gives us a deeper look at Kazuya's thinking in picking his outfit and his styling his hair. The jacket is to make him seem more casual, but it's not casual at all. He wears a graphic shirt with a singer on it and only wears it because it's his most expensive shirt he owns. That's just guy logic and our dumb way of thinking. After getting to the balcony, they banter first before talking about renting Sumi. Chizuru teases him to not look over it on her side because her underwear is not up and she's not drying them today. It's after this point, that's when they start talking about Sumi. The episode starts off right away with us learning about Sumi's backstory and then her meeting up with Chizuru at a cafe. After this, it cuts back and then the date begins with Kazuya. All this stuff still happens in the manga, but at a much later chapter. It's all in chapter 54, which is technically after the events in the anime. The anime content ends in the middle of chapter 50. During the bowling part of the date, everything happened the same way in the manga, but the guys were a lot more aggressive and disgusting. One guy was even trying to lift up Sumi's skirt before Kazuya stepped in. As they left together, the guys were a lot more rude and disrespectful. The panel on screen gives you an idea of what they were saying to Kazuya as they walked away. The anime version makes it seem like they hadn't spoken at all since she requested for him to rent Sumi. He hears something hitting his window and it's Chizuru throwing wood chips. This is when she tells him about quitting being a rental girlfriend. This was a very important moment in the anime, but arguably the manga version carried more weight. One morning, he realizes he's out of socks and has to go to the balcony to get some. He hears that Chizuru is also on her balcony, but debates on whether or not to say anything. He decides not to, and as he walks back to his place, he hears, "Good morning," from Chizuru. Kazuya is super flustered, and then they have minimal small talk before Chizuru makes him say good morning back to her. This is more impactful to their relationship because she had no other reason for talking to him other than wanting to. This was also one of my favorite moments in the manga. This was one of the most intense moments in the anime and the manga, with Mami going on a rental date with Chizuru. All the scenarios went down the same way other than the songs at the karaoke. Chizuru sings the opening song Centimeter by the Peggies in the anime, and in the manga she sings Gyuto by Little Glee Monster. Chizuru also mentions Rad Wimp's music as one of the songs she would sing if she were with Kazuya. The ending scene was great as a mini wrap up of the season, but it did have a few extra things thrown in there that I didn't mind at all. These few extra things also hinted at future content in later chapters of the manga. First off, in the manga, it continues the very next day after Kazuya's confession, and it's the start of another major arc that I won't spoil for you guys. Second, it shows Chizuru's theater classmate Umi with his girlfriend. I'm not sure if we see his girlfriend at all in the manga, I can't remember right off the top, but if we did, it's not emphasized hardly at all. Third, we see Chizuru's grandmother reading a flyer that you have to pause to appreciate. It's a flyer for Chizuru's play, Princess Heron, and she is sitting at the memorial altar for Chizuru's grandfather. Lastly, Mami is in a car being driven by an older man. We assume it's a date or maybe a family member. It's not explicitly said, but the anime makes an effort to point out Mami's bracelet in this scene. It is the same one that she asked Kazuya to help her find at the beach in the earlier episodes. We can only speculate that this is to symbolize that she still has some type of feelings for Kazuya. This was a whole chapter that was omitted from the anime and does not affect the story other than Chizuru thinking that Kazuya is more perverted than she already thinks he is. That being said, it is a very fun chapter and a great read that I think is worth your time. It is something that could easily be condensed into a few minutes, maybe half an episode, and be added into season 2, but I'll give you a brief summary of the chapter just in case you don't want to read it. So, Kazuya finds a pair of panties under the balcony barrier that separates his and Chizuru's apartment. He panics and then takes them inside, thinking they're Chizuru's, but gets an unexpected visit from Ruka. While trying to hide it from Ruka, he manages to go outside and then they fall out of his pocket and revealing them to everyone in the process. I left a link to the chapter in the description just so you can find out how it ends. Thank you for watching, everyone. Let me know if there are any differences that I missed. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Peace.